Welcome everyone. Today we have a new patch updated new build for the Spiritborn for Season 6. Now looking behind me, did you just see that max life 150 tier boss? It disappeared in 3 hits. So this is the latest update changes of the Spiritborn build I'm excited to share you guys about. I'm trying to pause to see. He did 352 trillion pops and those consecutive 3 pops. So one-shotted. I think, whoa, is that 3,000? Yeah, I think that's 3,649 trillion. And that's one hit. So this Chinese number is trillion, right? You can see, 3,743 trillion. And this is a 3.7, this is a 3,700 trillion. So this is the latest Chinese meta build from one of the Chinese content creators who has been sharing with a new setup, just changing one aspect. He's not using Mystic Circle anymore, and now he's stacking a massive amount of vulnerability damage that builds up that can one-shot anything. Now you might see that his run speed is a little slower in this particular latest update. This is because the monsters are purple monsters and they have damage block. And yes, myself personally, I'm also trying and also testing this build, and I have reached pit 50 using this particular setup. And I'll share you guys after the demonstration of this video. So in this video, we'll have a look at how the Chinese players were adjusting to the latest meta and also what are the new gears they're using. And yes guys, there will be some changes with aspects, master crafting, and of course with a new combination that allows you to do a lot more damage using this setup. So just to summarize, this build is much more player friendly, which allows you to do more damage in the pit 150. Even though the monsters now have the FXs and also purple monsters, you can see the Chinese players with not the perfect gear was able to reach the boss in about 5 minutes, and it does take a little bit time to build up the damage, but once you get to the numbers and once you get to the build up, I think on the second stagger, he got to the perfect moment that this allowed him to do the triple one-shot. So basically 3-shot at the boss with thousands of trillions of damage. I don't think the developers even consider that. So it's like thousands of trillions. Now a big shout out and also thank you to 每天想打游戏 for sharing his own build, and it is much cheaper. You don't need all the master crafting. He only hit 8 out of 12, and I'll show you guys at the end of the video, which is really nice. So this build is definitely not as intensive in terms of mastercraft and also in terms of stats. Now, briefly going through what has changed the previous popular, build with mystic circles and also other setup. The first thing is he went for the explorer aspects, and this allowed him to have additional up to 40% more damage against unstoppable enemies. For the chest, he still went for the additional damage to feared enemies, and for the gloves, it is still redirected force. And of course, we're getting interdiction for the 15% block chance. For the boots, we're going with Duelist, Catalectic Wand, and also Banish Lord, and also Midnight Sun. Nothing special. But the biggest change over here is gonna be here. He's not using Mystic Circle, not using Moonrise, but rather he's using the Fell Slayer aspects. Oh gosh, I cannot pronounce. He's using these particular aspects to allow him to do more vulnerable damage and also explode vulnerable damage to nearby enemies. And the Chinese content creators have been all talking about this in the community, and it seems to be doing the highest damage after the latest change. Now you do want to notice, we have changed the Mastercraft to chance for core skills to hit twice over here, and this is a massive bug fix. Before this wasn't working. So people are changing the Masterwork for this particular weapon now. Now during this time, it is recommended to look at the new gear stats and also changes over here that is adjusted towards this particular build. And yes, he is getting additional overpower damage on the rings and also on the gloves again, now that he's not going for Mystic Circle. You can see the priority for maximum life over here, maximum resolve and also maximum resilient. So 2 defensive gears are going with maximum resolve, 1 defensive gear is going maximum resilience. Now it is important guys, if you don't understand the 725 mechanics, I recommend watching the previous video. I'll have a link for you guys to understand to adjust this for your own build. So if we jump over to the previous build guide, which we talk about stats priorities and also everything that's related, and also in that video, we talk about the resource and also all the frequently asked questions, go to the timestamp over here to have a look at this video, which will explain a lot of crucial aspects you may be missing to do high damage. I will make another video to explain everything again for this one. Now in terms of the weapons and also armor, Trace of Ruins, not much has changed. It is recommended for you to have barrier generation up to 120% at least, and also balance your defense and also all resistance over here. You can see the Chinese players are going for some all resistance simply because monsters in the pit 150 now have FX and will hit very hard, and be aware of this. So going through the skill trees, there is a small difference. This player is not going with follow through, which means he will be losing out on damage. Now over here, the Chinese player have 1 point over here for additional damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. But what I did was I made the small adjustment to his build for you guys because most of you won't have the 275. So this point here is a little cheat code. But if you understand the mechanics, you could save a point here and you have more defensiveness. But here is definitely recommended if you don't understand the 275 and also hidden mechanics. So follow this one for now, unless you find yourself really short on defensiveness. He did go with 4 points into armor height, and this is a bigger difference. If you don't think you need 4 points into armor height, you can still go for this one, and that is the major difference for the skill points. In terms of the Paragon, it is changed. Again, I know guys. So I'm going to briefly run through you guys with the Paragon, and you can see the pathing. He's using Colossal, he's using Majorist again, and here he's using Fulminate, Spirit, and also Kenny. And this seems to be the highest damage factor for this particular build. Now briefly going through the skill rotations and also the how to play the build. I guess the build is straightforward. You want to pull a lot of monsters together and then you want to group them together to hit them. And you want to do even more. The more monsters you put together for this build, the more explosion you do, the more damage you will deal. Now here I want to point out, notice that he have this 275 always activated. I mean, when his skills are casting, it's always activated. You want to achieve this one, not flashing. And again, this is very important guys. Now jumping forward in terms of the 150 boss, you can see that at the very start of the fight, the first dagger, he did not get enough damage. And he's not casting the hunt very quickly. I guess he's not spamming the hunt as much as he can. But notice over here, he is preparing to get even more stacks and also more damage on the second rotation of the stagger. And you do want to time your highest damage skills together when the monster is staggered, or when the boss is staggered. And notice here, when the boss is staggered, this is when he hits for thousands of trillions and then 2 or 3 shot of boss. Give this a try guys if you want to hit big numbers, and I think this is definitely going to be a fun build now that they have changed the catalytic one to allow this to cast twice. This is why he has even higher attack speed and also big numbers. Again, before we finish, a big shout out to this content creator who has been sharing a lot of build that does not require the highest amount of gear stats. And one of the best thing about this content creator, I recommend following him, is that he actually shows you all the gear he has and what are the maximum tempering. Now one thing to notice, he still used his Mystic Circle on the current replay because he didn't have materials to change them. But you can see that he did not hit 12 Masterwork, he only hit Resolve twice, and he did hit Resolve 3 times over there, but he only hit Resilience 2 times over here. So this is not a very end game setup that is going to be very costly and also very hard to farm. And his gloves and rings at the time was not correct because he hasn't changed it. But even with this combo, he was 3 hitting the boss, and I definitely want to try this build. And in case you guys are wondering, yes, we're farming materials so I can reroll my damn gears to try the build. And I have picked the Paragon as we make the videos, so very excited to try the build and share with you guys the latest update.